Hi, my name is Aya. You're watching Aya Reads, and I'm here to talk about my favorite books I read this summer. So I actually have 6 books to talk about. One I read in June, 3 I read in July, and 2 I read in August. Yeah, so I'm gonna just talk about them in order of when I read them. So my favorite book that I read in June was The Bully by Sophie Lark. This, unfortunately, you cannot read as a standalone. It won't have as much of an impact on you. And it does really, especially the Kingmaker series by her, it's a continuous story. Like, you'll miss things if you just start out with this one. But basically, this is a culmination of 10 books, all 6 books in the Brutal Birthright series, 2 books in her Underworld series, and 2 books in the Kingmaker series. This book, you follow Dean. This is basically a Dramini story. Basically, Dean was definitely a villain in the first book. There's some things in his past that make him a villain, and in the last book, he saw Kat do something, and in this book, he decides to blackmail her. Basically, his blackmail entails her being his sex slave for a month. Basically, she has to do everything he wants for a month, and then he'll let her go. And she agrees because, first of all, she wants him to keep her secret, but also because she's also very intrigued by him, even before he started talking to her. This I loved so much. I loved the whole month of them exploring together, the things they find out about each other, how they slowly start falling in love, and I love watching them navigate that after the month is over. This is so good. It's definitely one of my favorite Sophie Larks, and definitely my favorite in the Kingmaker series. I would highly recommend reading Sophie Lark, and this was honestly a perfect book in my opinion. So moving on to July, Heartless by Elsie Silver. This is the second book in the Chestnut Springs series. This you can definitely read as a standalone, but I did really love the first book too. This is a single dad nanny romance, and basically Cade Eaton, no nanny is good enough for his son, and one day Summer, the heroine from the first book, is fed up, so she forces him to hire her best friend Willa, and he doesn't want to because he's very attracted to Willa, but he reluctantly agrees, and there starts their romance. I love how fiery Willa is. It's definitely a grump sunshine because he's very grumpy. Definitely things happen in his past that make him that way, and she's just go with the flow. She's just a free spirit. And she's also quite a bit younger than him, so there's also an age gap. And he is just struggling because he sees how much his son loves her, but he also starting to fall in love, but he thinks that he's not good enough for her. This book is very hyped, and I do think it's hyped for a reason. I really loved it. I loved watching them together, and yeah, I would highly recommend this whole series, but especially Heartless. Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. Once again, a very hyped book, and I can definitely see why. This is a fantasy romance involving dragons, and you follow Violet Sorrengail, who has always thought that she was going to be a scribe because she has like joint pain, ligament pain that makes her very weak, and if you want to join the Rider Squadron, you have to be very strong. But her mother forces her to join the Rider Squadron, where she'll have a lot of enemies because the Rider Squadron have a lot of children from parents who were killed by Violet's mom after a revolution. So not only is she physically weaker, she has a bunch of enemies in the Rider Squadron, and her biggest enemy is Xaden. But obviously there's more to him. They start falling in love. She has her own dragon. It is a very good book. I do understand why people say that the world building is not all there, but I do love the bit of world building that we got. I loved how it was incorporated in this book, and I do feel like this is only the first book. Usually with fantasies, the world building in the first book is very small and it gets built upon in later books. So I do feel like people, when they say that, they're being a little bit too harsh. Like I said, I did really love it. I love the romance in here. I love the story, and I cannot wait to read the second book, which comes out in November. And my last favorite in July was Happy Place by Emily Henry. This is my favorite Emily Henry, actually. This is a second chance romance and also deals with fake dating in a way because Harriet and Wynne, they are part of this friend group, and every year they go on this summer holiday to this cabin or like this cottage. And this is going to be their last year because the father who owns this cabin, who's the father of one of their friends, he's going to sell it after this summer. And since they don't want to ruin this last trip, they decide to pretend that they're still together even though they're not. And in this book, you follow that storyline, but you also go back in the past, how they fell in love and how they eventually broke up. This I loved so much. I loved both Win and Harriet. I love watching them fall in love, and I'm a sucker for second chance romances, and I thought this one was beautiful. Actually, I have a vlog of me reading this one, and actually a vlog of me reading Fourth Wing, which I'll leave both of those linked for you. Yeah, I really loved it. I would highly recommend it. This is definitely, I think, Emily Henry's best book, in my opinion. But it's not technically, yeah, it is, actually. I love this one. I love it so much. Now for my two favorites I read in August. The first one is Married by Morning. I don't know if you can see that. Yeah, Married by Morning by Lisa Kleypas. This is the fourth book in the Hathaway series, and you actually do have to read the second and third book at least before reading this one. And if you're going to do that, you might as well read the first one, because the first one was amazing in my opinion. Basically, this love story has been set up from the second book, and I've been anticipating it from the second book. The Hathaways are a family of 5 kids, and Leo being the only boy. And so he's also the heir. And in the past, the love of his life died, and he's not been the same ever since. In the first book, he was drinking, gambling, just like wasting his life away. Then in the second book, he gets sent to Paris to deal with his shit. So he comes back, and there he meets Catherine, who's a newly hired ladies' companion for his 2 youngest sisters, and they don't get off on the right foot at all. They despise each other. They are everything the other hates. So he's a rake, somebody who doesn't really care about anything, and she's this uptight woman who cannot take a joke. So they constantly battle each other, and you see that in the second and third book. And in this book, they come head to head. Something happened in the third book, and now they have to deal with the ramifications of that. This involves a secret identity, and it's really, really good. I love it so much. Leo is amazing in my opinion. Catherine too. I love how they battle each other and how she can take everything he throws her way and the other way around. Loved it so much. If you've not read the Hathaway series, I would highly, highly recommend it. And last but most certainly not least is The Right Move by Liz Tomford. This is the second book in her Windy City series. Definitely my favorite. I think a lot of people's favorites in this series. You follow a basketball player named Ryan and a flight attendant named Indy. And Stevie, who was the heroine in the first book, she makes Ryan, who's her brother, take Indy in because in the last book, her boyfriend cheated on her and she has nowhere else to go. And Stevie knows that Ryan has an extra room. So she kind of forces him to take her in. He reluctantly agrees. And so they become roommates. He also needs a fake girlfriend because, to convince his general manager that there's more to him than just somebody that cares about basketball and doesn't have any life whatsoever. So this is also a fake dating trope. I love both those tropes. It is so good. Listen, Ryan Shea is the perfect man in my opinion. He is perfection. I love him. I love him so much. Everybody loves this book, and I can definitely see why. I love the little things he does for her, like the whole acts of service thing in this book. It's just perfection in my opinion. I love how they come together, and I love how they are opposites attract, and they slowly start moving towards each other. I loved every single page in this book. I tabbed the hell out of it, and I cannot wait to reread my favorite scenes and to one day reread this book. I absolutely love it. I can definitely see what the hype is about. And I really loved the issues they have in this book because Indy is somebody who people constantly walk over, mainly her ex-boyfriend and her friends. So Ryan makes sure that, that she feels valued, and they basically make this pact that she will do more things for her as opposed to just taking care of people. And Ryan, he is very, very isolated. He doesn't really want to go out because every time he goes out, fans kind of mob him. People just want things from him, autographs, questions, or answers to questions they have. And he cannot go outside of his house without people taking pictures of him. So she kind of makes a list for him that, to get him out of the house a little bit and to become the best boyfriend because they have to fake date, because she also wants to take him, they make a deal that she will pretend to be his girlfriend for the general manager, but he'll pretend to be her boyfriend for a wedding she has to attend where her ex-boyfriend is also invited. So very good, such a good book. It's so romantic. And like I said, Ryan Shea's the perfect man. And I thoroughly enjoyed this book. So I had an amazing reading summer. I loved all these books so much. And some of them will definitely end up in my favorite books of the year. I know that for sure. Okay, so I filmed the first part of this video a week ago. And since then, I decided I have 2 more favorites I read this summer. So now I have 1 book I read in June that was my favorite, 3 that I read in July, and 4 that I read in August. The first one is actually one I read by the time I made the first part of this video, but while I was editing, I realized, you know what, I should have included this book because it has a chokehold on me and I cannot stop thinking about it, and it's The Deal by Elle Kennedy. So this is a very, very old book. Well, very is... It was published in 2015, so it has been hyped for a long time, and I knew about it for a long time, and I finally read it this month for my reading popular sports romances to see if they are worth the hype. And I definitely think this one is, and it's definitely one of my favorites I read this month. I really loved it. Basically, this is the first book in the Off-Campus series by Elle Kennedy, and in this book you follow Garrett and Hannah. Garrett is a very popular hockey player, and Hannah doesn't really think about him that much, but she has a crush on a football guy or football player. And Garrett needs something from Hannah, and that is she's the only one that has a pretty decent grade for a philosophy course. So, and he needs his grades to be good to keep playing hockey. So when he finds out that she's the only one who actually aced it, he wants her to tutor him, but she keeps refusing. Then he finds out about her crush and he decides to use that to his advantage. So he's like, you know what? How about you tutor me and then we can fake date because I'm this popular, and if you date me, the football guy will definitely notice and then he'll be interested in you. So they make this deal, and while she's tutoring him, they develop a friendship, and it's a very adorable friendship. And while they are tutoring and being friends, she confides in him that she hasn't been able to orgasm because when she was 15 she was raped. So they decide to add another deal on top where he will try to get her to orgasm with him because she does feel comfortable with him because he is her friend. This was so adorable. I loved it. Like I said, ever since I read it, I cannot stop thinking about it. I keep thinking about it throughout this month. I really loved it. I do understand why a lot of people love this book so much. Yeah, I loved Garrett. I thought Garrett was such a good guy. I loved how much he loved Hannah. I loved how, even when they were still friends, how much he cared for her. And when she confided in him, how well he researched this topic, you know, to make her as comfortable as she can so that she can let loose and can have him help her. It was so adorable. I really loved it. It does stand the test of time. If you've not read this book yet, I would highly recommend it. And then my last favorite I actually read after finishing the first part of this video, and it's Powerless by Elsie Silver. I absolutely love this book. So this is A Childhood Friends to Lovers, which is not normally my favorite, but because I feel like usually with those types of romances, the reasonings for them not being together are not reasons at all. Whereas in this book, I did feel like the reasons were pretty clear. So basically in this book, this is the third book in the Chestnut Spring series. You can read this without having read the other ones. Basically, this is about Jasper, who has a horrific home life, actually. And ever since he was like a teenager, his best friend Beau and his family, the Eatons, they took him in, and he basically became a part of the Eaton family, and he basically sees the whole Eaton family as his family, like he sees them as their brothers. But they have a cousin, and they meet when Sloane is 10 and Jasper is 15, I think. And she's had a big crush on him from the very first moment she laid eyes on him. But he obviously was a little bit older and he didn't see her that way. But like I said, she had a crush on him from the very beginning and never really went away. But they did become very good friends. And throughout their years together, I think twice, she definitely made it clear that she wanted more, and he rejected her twice. In this book, we find out the reasons why. And now she's actually engaged to be married, and she's engaged to a pretty douchey guy. So on her wedding day, she finds out that he has been cheating on her. So she does a runaway bride situation and asks Jasper to help her. And that basically starts their romance because they go on this road trip together, and that's when he finally confesses that he has feelings for her, and he has been having them for a couple of years now. And she doesn't believe him at first because she has been pining for so long. And, she thinks that it's just him being jealous that she was almost going to be married to some other guy. And so he has to prove to her how much he loves her and for how long he has loved her. This is so, so good. Especially Jasper has dealt with so much, and I loved how much Sloane still loved him and has been there for him for so long. And what I also really loved is how sexy Jasper is. Like the sex scenes in this book are very hot, like very fiery hot. So yeah, I think this book has it all. It has some wholesome family moments with the Eatons and with Harvey. It has this pining heroine that has been pining for a long time. I know a lot of people don't like that trope. However, I do, because I kind of relate to that. And I love, and it's very spicy as well. So I would highly recommend it. If you've not read the Chestnut Spring series, I would highly recommend it. So yes, those were the 8 books that were my favorites that I read this summer. I would really love to know some of your favorite books that you read this summer. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful rest of your day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.